Hello everybody, welcome to our next in our series of mini lectures. In this particular lecture I'm going to talk some about some assessment tips that have been based on our extensive experience and give you an introduction to a sampling strategy. This particular lecture, the assumption is your students are going to only have the last 5 to 10 minutes of the session to complete your assessment. First assessment tip, complete the assessment during class. You can, of course, have the students complete it later, and I think it's possible if you have a really good teaching collaboration going on, but otherwise it's unlikely that the students will really complete the assessment after the class is over. Another advantage is the response rate is much higher, and less outside factors or distractions that can influence the student reaction to a class they've had. There are some disadvantages. It does take time from teaching. It can take 5 to 10 minutes, and from a 50-minute one-shot, that's a pretty big chunk. And there is less time for deep reflection. The next assessment tip, use a mix of rating and comment items. By rating, we mean things like Likert scale items. Of the advantages, it captures a broader, richer range of data, and it captures more data. We find that even students in a hurry to leave will at least complete a Likert scale section, even if they don't add any comments. And students who have something to say or just simply have more time will take time to actually give you comment feedbacks. The disadvantage is there will be more time consumed doing the additional data analysis required, as including the data entry. And the comment data can vary in quality and utility and can in fact be somewhat low. For example, you might get comments about, "We love the library, it was great," or "I'm hot, I'm cold, I'm hungry, I don't want to be here." Despite the fact that you may get some of these, we find that the useful ones tend to provide a great deal of value, and it can be worth your while. When you do an assessment, there's really no need for you to analyze every single form you get back, especially in large multi-section instruction sessions. You can simply take a sample. And to do so effectively, you need a sampling strategy. Sampling strategy consists of two components, the sample size itself and the sample representativeness. For the sample size, it needs to be large enough to produce statistically meaningful results, yet small enough to be manageable. And in our experience, generally a minimum of 10% of the target population will do the trick. Target population is essentially statistical talk for the group being studied, for example, first-year undergraduates. 10% is a minimum. If you can or have the time and the resources to analyze more than 10%, I encourage you to do so. Sample representativeness. All that means is that the sample you do take reflects the range and variation within the target population. To give you an idea how this might work, here's a hypothetical sampling example. Let's assume that the population is 10 sections of English composition, which nominally have 20 students per section, which should, if everyone shows up, give you a pool of 200 students. Let's assume again that only 80% of the students complete a feedback form, which will give you about 160 forms to work with. That's a pretty big batch. If we use our sample size of 10%, however, then it just becomes 16 feedback forms to analyze. How you can build the sample representativeness into this 16 forms, here's an example of one possibility. For the first 10 forms, randomly select one feedback form from each of the 10 sections. That gives you 6 forms left over. For those forms, randomly select one feedback form from any 6 of the 10 sections, but only one from each section. This will give you an idea how these things are structured, and we'll talk about this kind of thing in more detail later on.